So how did you know if 0, 2 is a solution? Remember, it's an ordered pair. The x, the y, you plug those in for x and y, right? And if it worked out, then it was a solution. If it didn't work out, then it wasn't a solution. Well, today we're going to plot that thing. So the point that we just plugged into the equation, they're going to ask you to plot that point. Well, what you're going to need to have is this thing called a rectangular coordinate system. It's called the rectangular coordinate system. And it's made up of two lines, right? The line that goes back and forth, that's called the x-axis. That's where you plot the x value. Remember, the first one is the x and the second one is the y. That's where you plot the x value. The second coordinate is the y value. You're going to plot that on the y-axis. So really, the first number tells you how many to go back and forth. The second number tells you how many to go up and down. And you're probably going to have values on your number line or on your axes, like this. -1, -2 goes in the opposite direction. Like that. So if they ask you to plot 0, 2, this one tells you how many to go right and left. This one tells you how many to go up and down. So where would 0, 2 be? 0 right or left, and then 2 up. So 0 right or left, and 2 up right there. That's point A. If I ask you to plot point B, let's do, how about 5, -2. So where would you go? This one is back and forth. So 5 to the right, and then 2 down. 5 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 down. So point B would be right about there. Oh, you know what I forgot to say? I forgot, and I know you know this already, you start right here. That's 0, 0, right? That point is called the origin, right there. That's called the origin, and it has coordinates 0, 0. You probably already knew that, right? What if I ask you to plot point C? How about 0, -4? 0 right or left, and then 4 down. 0 right or left, and then 4 down. Right there. How about one more? -2. Let's go 0. -2, 0. Where is -2, 0? I would go 2 to the left and then 0 up. So 2 to the left and then 0 up or down. That's point D. You've probably done this already, right? So the first one, that's the x-axis. The second one, the y-axis. There's fancy names for those. Did you know that? The x-axis, sometimes they might call it the abscissa, right? And this, the y-axis, the ordinate, the abscissa and the ordinate. I won't ask you about those two words, but in case you ever hear those, that's what they mean. The x is the abscissa, The y is the ordinate. Also, one other thing. How many pieces do you see here?
4.
4, right? What's the what prefix means 4? If it has 4 wheels, quad, right? And so this system is divided up into 4 regions, and those regions are called quadrants. There's 4 quadrants, and they're actually numbered. They start here. This is quadrant 1, and then they go counterclockwise from there. So this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this one is quadrant 4. They usually number them with Roman numerals. 1, 2, 3, and then number 4 is this. Roman numerals, do you know the V, it means 5? And when you write it before, it means to subtract. 5 take away 1 is 4. Okay. For those of you that don't read Roman, this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. So that's the first thing you're going to do is plot some points on there. That should be pretty easy, right? All you have to remember is that the first one is the x and the second one is the y. X goes back and forth, y goes up and down. The other thing you're going to have to do is graph that. Remember, x is back and forth, y is up and down. Well, it's not that hard. I see some people giving me an ick look. I think it's the stink eye. I see some people giving me the stink eye. Pardon? On what?
Nothing.
Oh, that's because you didn't let me explain it yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it'll be fine in 1 minute. I guess that's okay. So here's what we're going to do to graph. There's several ways you can graph, and we will learn them all eventually. But today, it's going to be pretty easy. Here's how we're going to graph. First step, you're going to let x equals 0, and you're going to find out what y is. Remember yesterday when you plugged both variables in, x and y? Well, today you're only going to plug in x equals 0. And you have to find out what is y. So in this equation right here, I'm going to plug in x equals 0. And I want you to solve that for y. How are you going to solve that for y? Well, some of you aren't because you are not even paying attention, looking around and counting the ceiling tiles. What do you get here? 2 times 0 is 0. Take away 3y equals 6. Do I really need that 0 right there? No. 0 take away 3y is just negative 3y. How would you finish that? How do you solve that?
Y equals negative 3.
How'd you get that, Tano?
Because you divided it.
Right. You divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. And what'd you get? Negative 2. So when, it's y equals. So when x equals 0, we plugged in x equals 0. What did we get for y? Negative 2. When x equals 0, we got y is negative 2. So over there on our system, when x equals 0, y is negative 2, right there. Big blue dot. That's going to be 1 point on our graph. Now, we're going to do the opposite. Now we're going to let the y equal 0. Now we're going to let let y equals 0. So we're going to let y equals 0 and try to find what is x if y equals 0. So almost the same thing over here, except what is y going to be? What did we say y was going to be now?
0.
0. So now we're going to let y equal 0, and we're going to figure out what is x if y equals 0. So work it out. What do you get here? What's negative 3 times 0?
0.
0. Do I really need that minus 0?
No.
So I just have 2x equals 6. What do I have to do to finish her up?
Divide.
Divide by 2 divided by 2. And I get x equals
3.
3. X equals 3. So over here, be careful, you get x equals 3. But remember, in your ordered pair, the x goes first, right? So x is 3 when y is 0. That's another point on your graph. X is 3, y is 0. Which way do I go? 3 units
To the right.
to the right. And 0 up or down. That would be my other point. Once you have those two, I go for the ruler. Go for the ruler, and what am I going to do? Try to draw a line. I'm not very coordinated. Oh boy. There we go. Arrows at the ends. The arrows mean it goes on forever and ever. Right? And that's your graph. That's one way to graph. Does that make sense? So you do two things when you graph. Let x equal 0, and you find y equals what? That's 1 point on your graph. Then you do the opposite. You let y equal 0, and you find what is x equal to. And you plot those two, that point, you'll end up with 2 points, and you just connect those, and that's your line then. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that make sense? That's all I have. Well, that's almost all I have for you today. Do you have questions?
No.
Are there any questions? Does anyone have a question? I have this right here, but hold up 1 minute. Hold up 1 minute, because I got one more thing for you. I got one more thing. But first, I'm going to stop the recording.